Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am so excited for today's video because it is going to be the first update in my 2024 No Pan Left Behind series. In this series, I am trying to no pan left behind as many eyeshadow palettes throughout my collection as possible. And if you don't know what no pan left behind means, for me, it means that I use every single shade within an eyeshadow palette at least one time before rolling it out. I do have quite a few bonus palettes that I'll be sharing with you that I have no pan left behind it, as well as sharing my updates on the palettes that I was focused on last month. So if you're interested in my updates, stay tuned. First, if you have yet to subscribe to my channel and you like project painting content, palette themed content, or just chit chatting about makeup, I'd love for you to consider subscribing before moving on. And other than that, let's jump into the video. I totally forgot, I did get some questions about how I track my usage, and I wanted to share that with you guys really quick. So here is my bullet journal, and I literally just draw my palettes out, and then I tally each time that I use a shade and tally each time that I use the palette. And that is how I personally track my usage. For my other eyeshadow palettes that I use throughout the month, it's just on this page as well. I list it out and just literally tally. All right, you guys, if my math is correct, I believe I have completed 11 palettes throughout my eyeshadow palette collection, No Pan Left Behind style. And just so you guys know, any new eyeshadow palettes coming into my collection, I need to complete No Pan Left Behind style before I allow myself to review it. So I have a couple of new eyeshadow palettes, as well as I was going for some easy ones throughout my collection, some quads, 5 pans, things like that. So I'm going to share with you first the 8 eyeshadow palettes that were not a part of this specific project that I was able to complete. And we will start with 3 of my Natasha Denona mini palettes. 2 of them were going in other projects that I wanted to complete No Pan Left Behind style. So we have the Natasha Denona mini nude, as well as the Natasha Denona mini pastel. I'm actually going to scoot over so that I can share over on this side any coinciding photos that I have with looks that I've created with any of these palettes that I have completed No Pan Left Behind style. So those I've completed, as well as my Natasha Denona mini Biba. There was a moment where I could not find my mini nude, and I was like, well, I'm gonna just use mini Biba today and try and complete that. I should already have my video up of ranking my palettes in terms of how many times I used each palette. So if you're curious more on use, check out that video. But I'll try and share a little bit as we go along. I also was able to complete my Aether Beauty Amertine Crystal Quad, this really beautiful mauve purple quad, and I actually no pan left behind this twice because it is just a little quad. I also have my Rowan 75 degrees quad. I'm working on this in my Rolling Project 10 pan. So, we're gonna be going through No Pan Left Behinding essentially many times over, but I'm excited that I was able to complete that. Was also working on my Persona palette in another project, the Persona Identity 1, and I was able to complete this eyeshadow palette, No Pan Left Behind style. This is one of the palettes that got the most use out of me last month. I was really excited to work on this palette because it is a favorite palette in my collection, but it's also a palette I find myself feeling like I can only reach for on special occasions. So it was nice to give myself the excuse to really sit with this palette and create looks. And then the final 2 palettes are both new palettes to my collection. I have the Ensleigh Rain Cold Moon palette, which I actually do have a 3 looks 1 palette up on my channel in case you're interested in checking that video out and kind of seeing more in detail how I created the looks that I created using this palette. Such a beautiful palette, and I'm very excited to try more from the brand. I'm also so excited that I finally have gotten around to trying Cosmic Beauty's formula. This is their Muse palette. I want every single eyeshadow palette that this brand ever comes out with. They are on the more affordable side, and their formula, both matte, shimmer, special shades, is absolutely incredible. I am so impressed. I had so much fun creating the looks that I did with this eyeshadow palette. I absolutely love the shade, well, I love Antique as well as Ambient. These kind of I love an ethereal shade or just a blue brown shade. I like something with a hint of blue. Can you tell? I'm a blue girly now. But I did finish this No Pan Left Behind style as well. So those are all of my bonus palettes that I was able to complete. Now let's get into, I'm just moving all this stuff over. Now let's get into the palettes that I was actually focused on in this project. So we can start with the 2 palettes that I did not touch at all. I'm a little bit shamed by. First up, we have the Scooby-Doo Rut-Row Raggy palette. This is what this one looks like. I did complete this No Pan Left Behind style last year, and I feel like my hesitation is I know I'm not a huge fan of these 2 matte shades right here, and I also just feel like I'm gonna create like the same looks that I did last year. So I kind of want to just like take a moment, be a little bit more creative, but I am hopeful that this will be a rollout for next update. Towards the end of February, we'll be getting closer to March, so I'll be even more excited about all the green looks that I'm creating. So I will complete this for the next update. And then my Glam Light Cake palette, I didn't reach for it all either. This is a very bright rainbow palette. Not exactly what I was feeling like reaching for this past month, and you know, I didn't even reach for it one time, so shame on me. Then we have my Lethal Cosmetics palette. I don't think I have a look to share with this because I did only reach for this palette one time, and I just reached into this shade right here. I think I did use it all over the lid as opposed to just an inner corner highlight, but I only reached for this palette one time, so we still have the majority of the palette left to use before we can roll out Lethal Wildfire, not Wildfire, Wildflower. And I'm gonna scoot over because the final 3 palettes that I have to share, I have completed No Pan Left Behind style. So up first, we have my Rowan Mood Forever quad. I ended up reaching for this a total of 5 times. I'll hold it upright. And I reached into this shade right here, which is actually my least favorite shade in the palette. I feel like it's pretty lackluster. I reached for this 3 times, and then I reached for the rest of the shades twice. This is a focus palette still for me in February, just because I feel like these beautiful cream shades are going to look so lovely with some of the pink looks I have in mind for February. But this is officially complete as a No Pan Left Behind palette. One of my focus palettes for January was my Ensleigh Norns palette, and I am pulling one of my focus palettes in as a palette that I want to complete, that I choose for myself each month, as opposed to the random wheel. And I did choose the Ensleigh Norns palette, and I was able to complete this palette No Pan Left Behind style as well. I ended up reaching for this palette a total of 6 times and reached for every single shade just one time, with the exception of Self and Charming I reached for twice, and then Pink Chameleon and Amber Place I also reached for a total of 2 times each. But I'm really excited that I No Pan Left Behinded this palette, because it was a palette I was thinking about potentially retiring at the end of the year, but I really ended up loving specifically like these 2 shades. I have a pan on Pink Chameleon. It's one of my favorite kind of pink toned or pink hued inner corner highlights, so I really love the palette for that. And I've always been a huge fan of Amber Place, but I actually really forgot how much I love this like deep brown like satin shimmer realism, and I don't think I will be retiring this palette because I really did enjoy using this one. And then I have the Pat McGrath Moonlit Seduction palette right here. I had no problem reaching into this palette to No Pan Left Behind this and complete this. This is a palette that I still want to keep at the forefront of my mind. It is one of my most favorite Pat McGrath palettes, if it is my favorite. It is my favorite. I just absolutely love this quad of shades. They're so sparkly, so glittery, so beautiful. This blue brown shade is one of my most favorite blue brown shades in my entire collection, and this was just such a joy to work with. I ended up reaching for this palette a total of 5 times, and I reached for this shade twice, this champagne shade up here. And then I also reached into this shade, the blue brown shade I was talking about, 2 times. Every other shade I just reached for 1 time in order to complete the Pat McGrath Moonlit Seduction. And then quickly before we roll in our 3 new palettes to replace the 3 that we completed in this project, I do just have my singles to share, because I'm also pulling a curated selection of singles each month. The singles are ones that I am choosing for myself. I'm not randomly generating them. But here was my little palette of singles, and I ended up reaching for my singles palette 5 total times. I used all of the shades at least once, with the exception of this shade down here. This, I believe, is out of the Kathleen Light's Dream Street palette, and this I believe was my favorite shade. Was it Kaleidoscope? This swatch, it's just like, this is just not, the quality isn't there anymore, and I just know that I'm not gonna find myself reaching for this. So I actually am gonna declutter this single, and this is the point and the purpose of me doing No Pan Left Behind on my singles as well, so I can get my way through my singles collection and see what I really do want to keep and what I don't. Coming back into my singles palette, I did end up reaching for this shade right here. This is Tara Moon's Atlas. I reached for that a total of 4 times. I really, really love that shade as an inner corner highlight. And then this shade right here, this is Glass Bowl from ColourPop, which used to be such a popular shade, but this just does not perform either like I remember it, or it's just, you know, the quality may have gone down as well, but it's just extremely lackluster. Perhaps my, you know, newfound love of indie shadows has just really ruined this shadow for me. But I have the shade out of, actually I have it right in front of me still, the shade out of the Cosmic Beauty palette, Antique, that I was talking about, is basically Glass Bowl, but like 10 times better. There's Glass Bowl, or sorry, there's Glass Bowl, there is Antique. So I also just don't feel like I need Glass Bowl in my collection anymore, so I will also be decluttering that. The rest of the singles I reached for at least 1 time, and I will be keeping the rest of these singles, but I'm gonna quickly swap those out so I can also share with you the new singles that I'll be working on in February. Let's quickly jump into the singles that I'm gonna be pulling in. So I curated a little February themed palette here. I have 9 shades in here. One of them is a repeat from my previous palette, and even though I already have used this, and this is, I feel like, kind of defeating the purpose, I feel like this is going to be a really beautiful shade to use in this month. So I have shades from my Cleota Dragon Fruit palette off to the side that I have depotted. I also have the shade JD Glow Opal here. This matte, like vibrant pink shade right here is Not That Serious from Tara Moon's. I have Pink Champagne right here from ABH, and then I also have, I believe this shade right here is out of the Colored Rain Queen of Hearts palette, and I need to decide if I want to keep that one. But these are going to be the shades that I am focused on. Hopefully can roll these out before the next update. That being said, we do have 3 eyeshadow palettes that were rolled in last month that I was able to complete, so we can roll in 3 additional eyeshadow palettes to work on next month. One of them will be one of my focus palettes for February, so we're actually only going to randomly roll in 2 eyeshadow palettes, and then the 3rd palette will be a February focus palette that I choose for myself. On top of that, we are still working on the Scooby-Doo Retro Reggae and the Glam Light Cake. So let's first actually see what Tiny Decisions is interested in us working on for palettes. Okay, so I have all of my palettes listed out, and I have tried to do the thing where, like, once a selection has, like, once a palette's been rolled in, I can't, like, roll it in again. So let's see what we get. Again, we're gonna be randomly generating 2 palettes. We get, ooh, Natasha Denona Glam. Okay. It's not like my most exciting palette, but it's a very easy palette to reach for every day. Only thing is there's 15 shades in that, so a larger one to work on. And then another Natasha palette, the Natasha Denona Biba palette. Lots of shades to be working on. I'm gonna go grab those 2 palettes. I'm gonna grab my February focus palette, and I'll be right back to share everything with you. Okay, you guys, I am back with my palettes. As a 3rd reminder, these 2 are staying in the project. We still have a long ways to go on that. Oh, and I'm so sorry. Also, my Lethal Wildflower palette. For my February focus palette that I am choosing to roll in, I'm gonna choose Juvia's Place the Pinks. I feel like this is the absolute perfect time of year to pull this palette in, just complete this one and be done in terms of, like, actually completing it. Plus it's 6 pans, so hopefully I can actually have this as a rollout. I feel like we have some really large palettes that we're working on right now in this project, so hopefully this will be like a layup situation, easy one for me to get. Then we have the Natasha Denona Midi Glam palette. This is what this palette looks like. This will be a really great option, especially if I'm wanting to play around with some color but want just like a neutral slash cool toned base, this is a really easy palette to reach for. Again, not my most exciting, and I feel like even Natasha Denona shimmers just like don't do it like they used to for me, because indie shadows have just like, indie shadows are just absolutely everything. But I am hopeful that I could use this one and complete this one by the next rotation or next update. I feel like with a little bit of effort, this could definitely be a rollout. And then for warmer tones, we have the Natasha Denona Biba palette, which we will also be working on No Pan Left Behind style throughout this project. This is something I actually completed kind of towards the end of 2023, No Pan Left Behind, and it made me fall back in love with this palette. This is really, really beautiful. I love the mattes in this palette. I will say, again, I don't think the shimmers are anything to write home about, but I am excited to play with this one. I'm excited to, you know, work on my Natasha Denona palettes. They're some of my more expensive in my collection, so it makes sense to get use out of them. But these are the, can I hold them all up? These are the 6 palettes that we will be working on, No Pan Left Behind style, hoping to complete for the next update. I'm a little worried. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, but we got this. We got this. We're gonna get there. We're gonna have at least a few rollouts next month. Let me know in the comments below what you think I will have completed by next month and what you think I will not have completed. I promise you won't offend me if you don't think I'm gonna complete these palettes, but I would love to know what you guys think. Other than that, that's gonna wrap it up for today's video. Thanks so much for sticking around to watch and for supporting me and my channel as you guys always do. I love you guys so much, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.